I love tools, I do. It's a bit of a fetish, you could say. But I've been collecting my tools for a very long period of time because I've been on the tools. I use them for my work. And if I needed a tool or a mislaid one, like hammers, I've lost count of how many hammers I got. Anyway, I would actually go and buy another hammer. Or I'd find somewhere where I could buy one from. Maybe I've got one second hand, for instance. And the same with hand planes, what have you. And like all my hand planes, I've titillated them up to suit my needs, over a long period of time. They're quite old tools now, like me, Well, I've been doing this since 1989. I've got 50 years worth of experience as, no, it's 1989. But anyway, okay, I'm taking a mick out of another YouTuber. But you see, we YouTubers, we like to tell you what you need to buy. We'll get all these fancy new tools on our bench. You say you need this one, you need this one, you need this one. Then we'll put a list in the description down below with a whole load of affiliate links. So every time you click on them and you buy one, you make a commission. Oh, yeah, you know how it goes. Well, the thing is, many of those tools, such as this mallet, I made, okay? My holding guide, I made. My shooting board here, I made. There's loads of tools that you can make. You can make all sorts of flipping tools. If you get old chisels, you can make turning tools. You can do all sorts of stuff. But if you're just starting out and you've got the tools to make those tools out, you need a few tools. Now, my suggestion, if you're just starting out and you don't really want to spend a huge amount of money because you haven't got it, and you want to get yourself a hand plane, right? Now, I would suggest something like a number 5. Not a number 4, smoother like this one, a number 5 jack plane. Now, if you can get over 5.5, even better, slightly wider, you see. Otherwise, a number 5. Now, the number 5 is great for jointing boards, okay? But also, you can use a smoothing plane. Now, I'd also suggest get yourself a second plane iron. Now, sharpen one plane iron like you would do for the smoother with a slight camber in the blade, and one straight for jointing the edges of boards. And then you've got a double whammy, you see, all at one tool. Plane irons are cheap, okay? You can get plane irons for under a tenner, okay? The plane itself is going to cost you a little bit, okay? But the thing is, though, you can get these second hand. Might need a bit of work. This plane, all right, I restored, okay? And there's a video on this channel of how I restored it. I made a new tote for it and a new knobs for it, got new plane irons for it. And it's a lovely plane to use now. I use this particular hand plane a lot. You can pick them up quite cheap. If they're in bad condition, you can pick them up quite cheap. As long as they're not cracked, bits missing. An old one is absolutely fine. You just need a bit of TLC, all right? Now, to start with, you just want to get into usable condition. It ain't going to be as pretty as this one, but you just need to get into usable working condition. Now, so you're going to need to get yourself a hand plane. I'm talking about the sharps first, okay? And then you want to get yourself a chisel, all right? Now, I could say to you, get yourself a chisel, with wooden handles. I use wooden handles because I prefer them. I prefer they grip nice, they're better on the hands. I just feel right to me. This is a very old Braid's firmer chisel. Don't rule out the firmer chisel, which basically doesn't have bevels on the edge, but that'll still do your job for you. Now, a 3/4 would probably suit you for a lot of your needs to start with. A 3/4 chisel. You don't have to buy one of these massive sets. Now, anyone who has bought a massive set, I guarantee you, right, there'll be chisels in there they use all the flipping time, and there'll be chisels in there they barely ever touch. They probably just get them out just for the sake of using it because they bought them. Seriously, all right? Now, if you are going to buy a bevel edge chisel in your little set of tools, now, what you want to make sure is, when you get, these are all old used tools, okay? Buy new ones if you want. If you're going to get yourself, say, new chisels, get something like, for instance, Ashley Isles or something, if you can afford it, or 2 Cherries, which is German, they're a nice chisel. The Narix ones with the decent wooden handles, not those whole construction grade type handles. They're a good chisel. But to be fair, you'd probably get away with something like, well, this is just like J Breaks, but the steel on that is actually really good. The handles are horrible, okay? Rubber and stuff, they're probably all sticky later. That's the other thing. If you've got tools with rubber handles, and there's a tool that you're going to have for several years, don't do it. Because these rubber handles will go sticky after a period of time. They'll go all nasty and they'll be nasty to use. It'll be terrible. So then I'll make wooden handles for them. because the steel's actually quite good. And also, if you look at the edge of that Draper Expert, the actual edge of the actual bevel edge here is thin at that point. You could use these chisels for the purpose of cleaning the shoulders of dovetails without bruising the dovetails. Same with this one here, and even this old Barco one here. Okay, it's a plastic chisel, but it's got a thin edge along the sides of the actual bevel. You see, I can't remember what that face is called now, but anyway. So chisels, how many do you really need? Okay, if you're going to be making loads of mortars and stuff like that, maybe you've got a chisel to suit the size of your mortars. You might want to get yourself a half inch, 12.7 mil, or even just a 12 mil chisel. You get a 16 or 18 mil chisel, 3/4. You might even want to get yourself an inch chisel if you want a 25 mil. But generally speaking, you're not going to need anything as big as this one, for instance. It's very unlikely. What you remember is the wider the chisel, the better you're going to have to be at sharpening it. Seriously. Because you're trying to cut more edge at one time, aren't you? So you either require a lot more force or an incredibly sharp chisel. Now, that one is because I dropped it on my toe and cut my toe the other day. I was only wearing Crocs. But anyway, I'll get some safety shoes while you're at it. Anyway, so chisels. You get away with one, maybe two chisels. Now, if you are interested in woodworking, speak to your granddad, all right? Or maybe he's passed and you look to speak to your grandma, what have you. The likelihood is they've got a load of tools stuck in the shed somewhere. And I've got a lot of my stuff over the years. Just stuff that's been given to me. Just need a little bit of work. Don't rule out the old tools. In many cases, they're far superior than much of the modern stuff you can get these days. Much of the modern stuff is the grades of steel all very much the same. I like some of the old steel. Especially some of the forged steel where they actually forge two pieces of metal together to create the edge. A bit like this plane iron here. That's forged, It's got a piece that's been forged into it that's harder than the actual body of the actual plane iron. Plane iron being the blade that's actually inside your plane. Now, some of these tools you'll be able to make. You don't have to buy, such as the mallet. So if you're going to get yourself a hammer, and like I say, I like wooden handles on my tools, especially if they're used inside. If you're going to be doing work outside, well then, okay, you might want to get like a construction grade type hammer or something like that. Because at the end of the day, I don't like getting this wet. Okay? Now, once you've got a few tools, you've got yourself a saw as well. I would get myself a back saw. Okay? Unless you're going to be ripping a load of boards, well then you're going to want to get yourself a panel saw, which are much longer. Let me show you. Now, these are old tools which require sharpening. You don't want to entertain that yet. You want to get yourself a hard point saw, okay? Like one of the ones with the plastic handles. You can get them with wooden handles, but like this sort of thing here. Yeah, I would suggest something like a Sandvik 244, something like that. It's Barco now, isn't it? Yeah, 244, or even the jack saw, which is the ones with the orange handles. They are very simple panel saws, but they just work. The thing you've got to be careful of is some of these modern saws you see in the shop, okay, in your DIY tool store, whatever, the blade is too thin and the saw is too floppy. Now that's fine if you're going to be going down the route of a pull saw, such as a Japanese pull saw like this one here. They are floppy, but that's okay because it's on the pull stroke. Now if it isn't a well set saw, well then you have problems pushing it back through the wood again and it's going to grab. That one's a bit worn, it's got a few kinks in it now. I generally use it just for cutting off dowels and what have you, or plugs for screws. Now, you've got all your tools, all right? How about setting out? Well, you need a way of setting out. Now, you don't need to spend any money on that if you don't want to. You can make yourself a square. Now, I've got these ones here, I've got another one up there. These are what we call combination squares. And you can slide that rule backwards and forwards within the square body. Anyway, so you slide it backwards and forwards, so you've got your 90 degrees there, you've got 45 degrees there, you can do internal and external as well. It's the beauty about the combination square, you see. It's the best of both worlds. Now, if someone tells you to get yourself a framing square, I wouldn't suggest that for woodworking. They just aren't accurate. They're accurate for what they're designed for, okay? Not for woodworking itself. You've got to make little boxes and stuff like that. You want something reasonably accurate. I like the combination square. You could make your own square, such as a little T-bar square or something like that, or just a little wooden tri-square, which effectively is like that, but just a try. Okay, but you're not going to get your 45. But you can make a 45 degree version if you want. Now, yeah, so you can make them. Then if you wooden squares, if you're going to be running marking knives or stuff like against the edge of them, well then potentially you can damage them. You're not going to damage these. Now, talk about marking knives. I make my own marking knives. This is my marking knife, and it has a grind on one side only, not both sides. I made it out of an old saw blade. But you can also make an actual marking knife if you want, quite easily. If you've got a way of grinding it, that is, out of an old saw blade, a hacksaw blade. Sharpen it up, put a point on it, put an edge on one side. You've got they actually work very well, actually. You get a hell of an edge on it as well. So it's just simple. We don't have to complicate it. We don't have to drool at the tool in the tool shop. I want that, and spend an absolute fortune on stuff either you don't really need, or you don't actually oxymoron on those, but you don't need it, or you won't actually end up using. You think you need it, but you don't. I've done it so many times myself. We all do it. Let's be honest. We do. We all do it. Now you want to get yourself a pencil. Any pencil will do. I use 2B pencils. Okay, and if I'm not using 2B pencils, I'll be using these mechanical pencils, which happen to be 2B. So mechanical pencils, you can get yourself black edge, such as this one here. Or I've got my Cascamite pencil. They're actually quite good pencils there, but you can't buy them. They're Cascamite, pad resin, wood glue. Yes, the black edge, Rexall black edge pencils. They don't roll off your bench. They're actually really good pencils, and I go for the red one because the lead's the right sort of. It's nice dark lead. Otherwise, the mechanical pencils, such as Pro Carbon, what have you, I use them all the while now, actually, since I've been introduced to them. Very, very good. So, a square, such as one of these old ones, you can buy these new. The only thing is, be careful with a square. Many of these you buy these days are light, really light. These are cast, all right, cast iron. All right, cast iron, steel, stainless steel. So the beauty about it is that these are accurate and they keep very true for a long period of time. If you've got a square that's made of it's got an aluminium body like this, and there's rules been sliding backwards and forwards, it wears at that point there and that point there, and what happens is it ends up being out of true. Now, if you are going to be buying a square that is, well, new and it's cheap, grab yourself a pencil or something like that and find something in the store that has a square edge on it, okay? And place your square on that edge there, like so. Make a line, turn it over, and see if that lines up with the square. If it doesn't, it's not square. All right, simple as that. So when you go in the store, check it out. Because much of the stuff you buy these days ain't any good. Seriously. Now, you could buy a Swanson or something like that, but they're really expensive, you know? Really expensive. A Barco's, they're all right. They're not bad at all. I'm not a lover of Stanley stuff these days. Stanley's not... I've got a lot of Stanley tools, okay? But they're old, all right? Modern Stanley tools, they're all pretty much made in India and China and places like that. They aren't very good, okay? There are better options for the money. There really is. They're okay. Don't be wrong. They're all right, but they're not worth the money. They aren't worth the money. Now, you've got all this stuff here. You need a way of sharpening them. I would suggest you get yourself just a couple of these diamond sharpeners, a 600 and a 2.5, 3,000 grit for your final sharpening. That's pretty much what I would do. These, you get these for like $5 each. You know, they give them a Temo, Amazon, any of those sort of places are really cheap. You know, there's no links down below, okay, in the description. So I'm not doing that, not in this video. I'm trying to prove to you that you can actually get started without spending a load of money. You know, just have a go. We need it. There's so many people who would like to give it a go. And they just think about the money all the time. I've got to buy a plane. Oh, that's going to cost me 150 quid or something. And then you got this. I can't afford it. Whereas you can pick up a plane cheap, second hand, a used one. You know, it might be ready to go. It might not. Ask your friends and family if they got anything, or they know anyone's got one. They might have one sitting in the cabinet to give it to you. Wow, excellent, I'd say. Now, while you're sharpening, right, if you're just starting out, especially, don't just practice freehand, but don't make that your go-to method of sharpening. It's always good to practice, obviously, if you get caught out. But I would suggest you get yourself a little honing guide like this one, but better still, make one like that one, okay? This might look dumb, right? It's a block of wood set at the right angle, and it has a couple of magnets set in it, and it just works. It is so simple. It just works. I use this when I'm grinding because I use a linisher, basically belt sand it if I need to grind. You shouldn't really need to very often. Get yourself if you can't afford a grinder at this stage, get yourself another one of these, but get yourself something a 250 to 300 grit, okay, and use that for your grind. It'll take a little bit longer than using an actual bench grinder or a linisher. I don't use bench grinders; I get too hot. But anyway, yeah, they'll work. It'll work. Now, I just use this little block, and it basically with the magnets, it just holds the plane iron to the actual honing guide here. I set it flush on the bottom, and then all I have to do is set it on a block, and I don't think about mechanical memory or anything like that. It's just at the right angle all the while. Now, I don't worry about actually making my primary grind any different to my micro grind, because generally you've got two grinds on your plane irons and your chisels. I don't bother with it, sort of. See, what happens is I do everything at the same angle, but that final little sharpen, honing on the 2.5 or 3,000 grit diamond sharpener, I just lift it up just a touch, okay, or pull it back a little bit. I just lift on these ones there, just pull it back a bit, you'll get slightly steeper. And I just literally just do a few little, circles with the plane iron, like so, and then flatten the back and what have you. Your back of your plane iron needs to be flat, but it doesn't all have to be flat. It just needs to be flat at the point of the edge. If it's not flat at the edge, okay, what will end up happening is you'll have areas that will be sharp and areas that won't be sharp because you wouldn't have honed the back. It just won't work properly. Now, if you are going to be using one of these, make yourself one of these. It just makes life easier. Now, all this is a piece of wood, piece of plywood, with that piece of wood stuck to it. So all I have to do, when I want to set my plane iron in its honing guide, okay, I just set it on there like so, and move it up against the piece of wood, like so. And that means I've got a repeatable angle. So every time I go back to this little honing guide, it will be set at exactly the same angle that it was last time. Now, I know a lot of people say, well, I just sharpen by hand. It's like a cult it is, Oh, everyone does freehand, and there's, hold it up on your hand like so. Yeah, fine. Don't do that not until you've got the hang of it, okay? Otherwise, you end up cutting yourself. Now, you want a little bit of leather, okay? Now, you don't have to buy that either. This is actually a piece of a bridle. A bit of old leather, a bit of bridle. That's all that is. I just use a bit of a grind and paste, such as that. You can use a piece of pretty much anything, really. A bit of brass and do the same job. You always just put a little bit of abrasive into the leather. Now, quite frankly, you can get away with not even doing that when you're doing those final hones. Get a really sharp edge, right? And the thing is about when you're sharpening your plane irons, it's practice. Practice, practice, practice. It's not going to happen overnight. You're going to think, I can't get that edge sharp. Don't worry. Just start again. Don't get frustrated over it. Just start again. You haven't lost anything, right? It's practice. No one gets it right the first time. And, the manufacturers certainly don't, because when you get your tool out of the shop, your plane iron will be blunt. They'll say it's sharp, but it'll be blunt. And maybe a Lee Nielsen you'll be right, but, who's going to be spending 500 quid for... Oh, it was about 5 quid for number 5, Lee Nielsen. They're not going to, you're not really starting out. So anyway, this is my little suggestions for some tools just to start out. So what we've got here, some form of chisel, okay? 3/4, I'd suggest it's going to be your first chisel. I think that's I think that's quite a universal size. If I'm ever picking a chisel up, the ones I pick up the most are these little old firmers. That's what I pick up. They're very old. You know, I've had them donkeys years. I like using them, so they're my go-tos. This old hammer here, it's been cleaned up so many times. I don't even know what make it is. Right? You know, I don't know if it's a Stanley. I don't think it is actually, but there's no maker's name. There's no weight on it anymore. It's been batched so many times. You know, it's a nice balanced hammer. I like it. All right, I feel at home with it. That's the thing, you see, you'll get to learn your tools, and your tools will become a part of you. And as soon as somebody puts something different in your hands, unless you've got loads of experience, it will feel a little unnatural to you at first. Okay, so hammer, chisels, a plane, preferably a 5.5. Okay, if you can only get hold of someone's giving you number 4, well then use it. All right. Don't get precious about your woodworking. There's no point. Just enjoy the process. All right. You'll get more tools later. When people get they might say, you know, your birthday, Christmas, and stuff like that, or just gift you stuff. You know, it's just how it is. No. So okay. So a way of sharpening. So some diamond sharpeners. Some form of honing guide, such as these, yeah. A way of setting your honing guides. Yeah, make these things you just make yourself. Right? You can't buy it anyway, so just make it yourself. Some form of square. I'd say a combination. Squares are a good all-round tool, you know. Otherwise, make your own. Just make sure, obviously, it's square, okay. And it needs to be 2 pieces of wood, okay, literally just glued together, all right. You're also going to need a few clamps, okay? And it really depends. I'm not going to show you any clamps because it really depends on what kind of woodwork you're going to be doing. But while you're at it, make yourself a bench hook, okay? Which is literally there so you can, you know, if you haven't got a vise, you just push it up against your bench or the kitchen table, all right? And then you can place a piece of wood up against it, like so. And you grab your saw, you know, whatever saw you got, and then you can start cutting. Just helps hold your piece of wood. So a lot of the stuff you don't need to buy. I can say these woodworking gurus, look, it's beautiful stuff they're showing, but you don't necessarily need it, especially when you're starting out. All these wonderful, mica fences and stuff like that for your table saws if you got one. No, to start with, the first thing you want to do is ask yourself what kind of woodworking you want to do. And then just think to yourself, what am I going to need for that? That's what I would do. Don't think you need all this gear. I mean, I've got a lot of gear in here. And this isn't my only workshop, you know. So it's like, there's a lot of stuff in this shop, all right? And I've got a lot of hand tools. You know, we've got lathes over here, got all sorts of stuff, you know. Good stuff, you know, reasonably good stuff. I've got my compound mortars there. I've got my multi-co 12-inch planer there. I've got the spindle model through there. I've got the surfacer under planer there. My table saw here. Got a couple of band saws in here. You know, there's lots of tools. All stuff that I've had to buy myself over a period of time. And my scroll saw there, pillar drill, linisher, you know, and obviously dust extractors and what have you, air filters, and this is accumulation, you know. Do I need it all? No, probably not, you know. But if there's certain tools, certain machines, I'd say I use a lot. Table saw, most definitely. That is my most used tool. And also my radial arm saw. Both of them are really old tools now, just like me. Anyway, I just want to share it with you because it worries me that people are going to spend beyond their means, you see, just to start out. And at the beginning, you don't need it, really. But, you know, regarding your projects, start basic, okay? And then buy your tools accordingly. You know, you don't have to think about complicated joints and stuff like that. You progress into that, you know. The dovetail joint, for instance, is a relatively simple joint to do. But to do it well takes skill. It takes time. And it takes sharp tools, which also requires skill. And obviously the right saws and so on and so forth. But if you make little boxes and stuff like that, just practice. Maybe start just a few butt joints and what have you, just to glue it together or whatever, just to give it a go. It's better that you give it a go. And you think, well, not that happy with that. Ask yourself, why aren't you happy with it? And just improve on it. That's all you can really do, isn't it? Anyway, that was a long video. Toodaloo.